They sat me next to a trash can after I paid over $3,400 for their engagement dinner. What happened next shocked everyone, and split our family in half. My name's Caleb, I'm 35, and I've always been the background sibling. Not the screw-up, not the star. Just the steady one. I filed my taxes early, sent thank-you notes on time, and remember everyone's dog's name. I work in financial auditing, live alone, and am practically invisible at every family function unless something needs fixing or funding. My family? Picture a sitcom that never gets cancelled, loud, high-functioning dysfunction, with a permanent laugh track to cover up real problems. My parents are masters at pretending everything is fine as long as the photos look good. And my younger brother, Brandon? He's the golden boy dipped in Teflon. Charismatic, impulsive, messy, but somehow always lands on his feet. Dropped out of business school. He's finding himself. Moved back in at 29? It's just temporary. Got fired twice in 1 year? That job wasn't a good fit anyway. Meanwhile, I've held the same job for 12 years, paid off my student loan solo, and once covered 3 months of our parents' mortgage when Dad's union hours were slashed. Not that anyone noticed. I was always invited to weddings, never asked to be in the wedding photos. Still, I kept showing up. I guess part of me believed that if I kept being reliable long enough, one day I'd be seen, not just as the family's ATM with a smile. That illusion shattered last October. Brandon got engaged to a woman named Hannah. My mother had already declared her heaven sent. So they decided to throw an upscale engagement dinner at this glitzy rooftop venue downtown, definitely out of their usual budget range. 2 weeks before the event, Mom called me with her sugar-sweet voice reserved for manipulations. Caleb, honey, we're so excited about Brandon and Hannah's big night. Would love you there, of course. And, would you mind helping reserve the space? Just to hold it, you know. We'll pay you back. I should have known then that we'll pay you back meant goodbye to that money forever. But like always, I said yes. I booked the venue, $7.20 just for the private section deposit, on my card. Didn't flinch. I even called around to find a jazz band Brandon had once mentioned liking. I showed up at 6:55 p.m. on the dot. Navy suit tailored. Pocket square. Custom bottle of champagne engraved with their initials. A handwritten card. When I walked in, I saw the string lights glowing across the skyline, gold-trimmed menus, people clinking glasses. My parents, Brandon, Hannah, her family, all there. Laughing, glowing. I smiled and walked over. Brandon looked at me, flashed that smug half-smile. Hey, you made it, he said like I was the Uber Eats guy. Then he gestured behind me. Sorry, this table's for family only. He pointed to a fold-out chair off to the side. But there's a spot for you, over there. Right next to the trash can. At first I laughed. Thought it was a joke. Looked at Mom. She gave me that tight smile like she didn't want to get involved. Dad offered a weak toast in my direction without making eye contact. Nobody said a word. I sat down, still in my coat. Champagne still in my hand. A waiter handed me a glass of water and walked away. No one offered me a plate. Not even a seat at the table I paid for. I watched for 2 hours as they toasted, gave speeches, and cried over how blessed they were. Then the waiter came with the final bill, $3,427.18. He approached their table, then looked at me. Sir, should I run this to the card on file? Brandon raised his glass. Caleb's got it. I stood, smiled, and said clearly, Not my table. I was told this section's for family only. Dead silence. And that was just the beginning. There was a pause, just long enough to feel like time cracked in two. Brandon's smirk faded into this confused, twitchy frown. My mom blinked like she'd just come out of anesthesia. Even Hannah looked up from her drink for the first time, her perfectly manicured hand hovering awkwardly over her flute. The waiter stood there like a soldier caught in a family war. Sir? He said to me again, voice lowered. You made the reservation. The deposit. Yeah. I cut in, voice calm. I paid the $720 deposit. I picked the date, I called the jazz band, I arranged the flowers because Mom said carnations looked cheap in pictures. I even made sure the night wouldn't clash with Brandon's flag football league schedule. But I didn't eat. I didn't toast. And apparently I'm not family. And with that, I grabbed my coat, gave one last look at my champagne bottle sitting unopened next to the trash can, and walked toward the exit. That should have been it. But of course, Brandon couldn't let me leave with the last word. Come on, Caleb, don't be dramatic, he called out. It was a joke, man. You're so sensitive. You always do this. I stopped cold. Slowly turned around. Yeah? Well, maybe if being left out your entire life doesn't make you sensitive, it makes you a ghost. The air turned to glass. Even the band stopped playing. Brooke's father, who had been nursing a scotch at the edge of the table, suddenly straightened. Wait a minute, he said, turning toward Brandon. You had your own brother pay for this event, then made him sit by the trash? Brandon looked like someone had just slapped him with a ledger. It wasn't, he wanted to, I thought. No, you didn't, I said flatly. You thought I wouldn't say anything. Just like always. I didn't wait for a response. I left. But I wasn't ready for what happened that night after I got home. Still in my suit. Still holding that unopened bottle like a cursed artifact. My phone lit up. First, a text from Brandon. Dude, seriously? You couldn't have just paid and talked to me after? Then one from Mom. You embarrassed us in front of Hannah's entire family. Was that your goal? Revenge? And then, a call from an unknown number. I answered out of morbid curiosity. It was Hannah. Hi, she said, voice lower than I'd ever heard. I know we've never really talked, but can I ask you something? Sure, I said cautiously. Did you really pay for the deposit? The restaurant? All of it? Yeah, I said. I did. There was a beat of silence. Then she said the part that sent a chill down my spine. They told my dad you offered to. That it was your idea, a gift. My heart went still. I never offered, I said. They asked? I said yes. I didn't do it for attention. But I definitely didn't volunteer. She sighed. My dad's livid. He said if he'd known the dinner was paid for by someone they treated like a server, he never would have agreed to that place. I didn't say anything. He feels like they made a fool out of him. And honestly? Her voice dropped. I kind of do too. She hung up after saying she wasn't calling to stir drama, she just thought I should know. But that call? That's when everything flipped. Because within 48 hours, Brooke's father turned into a storm. Word started leaking through Brandon's friend circle. A guy named Troy, who'd always been borderline decent to me, let a few things slip over text. Apparently, Mr. Whitaker, Hannah's dad, had hosted a brunch the next morning for their family, and went off. Full meltdown. Something about how, if they'll humiliate one of their own to climb the social ladder, what do you think they'll do when the stakes are higher? Yikes. Suddenly, the wedding planning paused. Pinterest boards disappeared. Bridesmaids' group chats went silent. Hannah moved back into her condo. For a breather. And then, Mom emailed me. An actual email. Not a text. Subject. Please. It was 5 paragraphs of passive-aggressive gaslighting dressed in floral apologies. We never meant to hurt you. We didn't realize you felt left out. It would mean the world to the family if you'd sit down with Brandon and clear this up. But there was no sorry. Just, you misunderstood, and let's not let one silly night destroy everything. One line made me pause. Let's not let one silly night destroy the bond we've built. What bond? Was it the bond where I canceled my ski trip last Christmas because Dad needed help installing a new furnace? Or the one where I co-signed the lease on Brandon's car that he later crashed? Or maybe the bond where I sent $800 to cover Mom's dental emergency, and she used it on a spa package? Whatever bond they thought they had, it wasn't with me. Not really. And I was about to prove it. Because just when they thought it couldn't get worse, the real earthquake was about to hit. When I was 15, I got left behind at my cousin's birthday party. Literally. The whole family carpooled to this lake house upstate. It was a big summer bash, music, canoes, barbecue, fireworks, the whole 9 yards. At the end of the night, everyone piled into their cars and left. I'd gone to the dock for 5 minutes to watch the stars, and they forgot me. No one called. No one noticed until I borrowed the dock owner's landline at midnight and phoned home. My mom answered sleepily, not even apologetic, just annoyed. Well, why weren't you with everyone else? That moment? That was the first time I realized my presence was optional. But back then, I still believed that if I kept doing the right thing, I'd eventually earn a place. That belief clung to me like lint for years. Until now. Because after the email from Mom, and Hannah's quiet call, I stopped waiting for an apology. I started pulling levers. Step 1. The shared bank account. A year ago, when Brandon was in between startups, he begged me to help him set up a temporary checking account tied to my business for creditworthiness. I agreed. Foolishly. He used it for everything: gym, DoorDash, Spotify, even some bills. The agreement was he'd close it when he was back on his feet. He never did. So I moved the remaining $2,300 into my new private savings account, the one with a nice little emergency fund. I called the bank, flagged the joint account for closure, and signed the digital release form. Done. 2 hours later, my phone blew up. Brandon, for missed calls. Then a text. Bro, what the hell? My card's bouncing. I have dinner with Hannah tonight. Fix it. I waited 10 minutes. Then texted back. You told me I wasn't family. You don't get to use my money if I'm not even allowed at the table. That's when the calls turned frantic. I finally answered the 5th one. Brandon's voice was loud, anxious, and suddenly very full of emotion. You're jealous, Caleb. Just admit it. You've always hated that I got the attention. And now you're throwing a tantrum because Hannah's dad took my side. I actually laughed. Oh, Brandon. You really think Mr. Whitaker's on your side? Silence. Then I said, why don't you call him? See what he says about that dinner. About the bill. About who paid for the custom place cards. Let me know if he picks up. And I hung up. I thought that would be the end of it. But then, Hannah emailed me. Subject: we need to talk. It felt ominous. I almost didn't open it. But curiosity? It's a stubborn little itch. The message was longer than I expected. Thoughtful. Quiet. And surprisingly, sincere. She said she'd spent the last few days unraveling the full picture, starting with a call to the restaurant manager, who gave her a full breakdown of the charges on my card. Then she talked to the waiter who served me. He remembered the whole thing. Especially the part where I was seated next to a trash can with a bottle of champagne in my lap. Brandon had told her I insisted on paying. That I was shy and didn't want to sit with everyone else. That I left early because I had a work emergency. But once the truth came out, she ended the engagement. Yes. You read that right. It wasn't just the dinner, she wrote. It was everything that unraveled after. The lies. The gaslighting. The entitlement. The way he spoke about you behind your back. Apparently, Brandon used to mock me to her, called me the banker, the family accountant, Buzzkill Caleb. She ended the email with one line that actually made me tear up a little. You were the only one who reacted with any dignity. I didn't respond right away. I reread that sentence about 6 times, not because I didn't believe her, but because I wasn't used to being believed. The fallout from that email was fast. The wedding venue got cancelled. Hannah's dad sent out formal notices. Vendors started calling Brandon for refunds. A few of his friends dropped off the radar entirely. Turns out they were more into Hannah's networking circle than Brandon himself. Then came the cherry on top. A voicemail from Mom. Not angry. Not guilt-tripping. Just tired. Her voice small. Please, Caleb. Let's talk. I didn't realize how bad things had gotten. I want to fix this. Not for Brandon. For you. For once, she didn't say, "You're too sensitive." She didn't say, "You misunderstood." She just said, "I'm sorry." I didn't reply. Not yet. I needed her to sit with that silence, the way I sat through years of theirs. But something in me shifted. For the first time since that forgotten lake trip at 15, I felt like I had some power over my own story. And I was just getting started. 3 weeks went by. No group texts. No late-night calls from Brandon. No dramatic voicemails from Mom. Just silence, thick and strange, like the air after a long thunderstorm. Then one Sunday afternoon, I heard a knock on my door. I opened it halfway and nearly laughed out loud. There she was, Mom, standing on my porch holding a Tupperware container of lasagna like it was some ancient peace treaty. She was wrapped in a long cardigan, eyes puffy, foundation barely covering the evidence of a restless night. "I brought you dinner," she said quietly. I didn't reach for it. I didn't say anything. "I just want to talk," she added. "No excuses." That part surprised me. I stepped aside. She entered slowly, like the air inside might slap her. She sat at the kitchen table, same spot she used to read the mail when I was a kid. She folded her hands and stared at them like they might have the words she couldn't find. "I owe you an apology," she said. I crossed my arms. "Just one?" Her lips pressed into a line. Then she nodded. "Probably more than one." She looked older than I remembered. Smaller. Maybe it was just the weight of finally having to hold herself accountable. She took a breath and said the thing I never thought I'd hear. "I didn't see it. Not because it wasn't there. But because I didn't want to." She didn't flinch when she said it. No backpedaling. No softening the edges. Just truth. That was new. "Brandon's loud," she continued. "He takes up space. You never asked for anything. You just did. You handled things. You kept the family stitched together while I got too used to leaning on you." I sat down slowly across from her. "That's the thing about safety nets," I said. "No one looks at them unless they're falling. Never when they're climbing." She nodded. Her lip trembled. For once, she didn't defend Brandon. She didn't say, "He didn't mean it," or "You just took it wrong." She just sat in it. "I can't undo what we let happen. I can't fix this with lasagna," she said, sliding the container forward like it weighed 100 pounds. "But I needed you to hear this from me. You were right." That line, "You were right," landed in a part of me I didn't realize had been aching for years. We didn't talk long. She didn't ask me to forgive Brandon. She didn't ask me to show up to the next holiday. She just said, "Take care of yourself." And left. No guilt trip. No emotional "I owe you." Just left. And that changed something. Not everything, but something. Over the next few weeks, they stopped treating me like a customer service line. Messages were individual, short, respectful. My dad sent a simple text on my birthday. "Happy birthday, Caleb. I hope it's a good one." No joke at the end. No passive-aggressive nudge. "Mom invited me to Thanksgiving." "No pressure," she said. "Only if you feel up to it." I hadn't decided yet. Brandon, from what I heard through a friend, was working part-time at a startup he hated. Still living rent-free, still pretending nothing had really changed. Probably still waiting for someone to swoop in and solve it all for him. But no one did. And I was done being the one who tried. I took that long-postponed trip to Portugal. Stayed in a quiet Airbnb overlooking the hills of Lisbon, where no one asked me to Venmo them or pick up a tab. I bought myself a pair of stupidly expensive noise-canceling headphones. Not because I needed them. Because I wanted something no one else had touched. I started reading books about boundaries. About emotional labor. About how being the responsible one doesn't mean you have to set yourself on fire to keep others warm. I started therapy. Not because I was broken, but because healing isn't something you wait for permission to start. It took me a long time to realize this, but the dinner wasn't the betrayal. The betrayal was how normal it felt. And the real revenge? Is peace. A month after Mom's lasagna and apology visit, my phone buzzed again. Not Brandon. Not Dad. This time, it was a notice from the county clerk's office. A reminder about the shared title on my parents' second car. You know, the one I co-signed for 4 years ago when Dad's old SUV finally quit, and they just needed a little help to get back on their feet. I had forgotten all about it. They hadn't. Apparently, the registration was due, and a late fee had already hit. I stared at the notification for a long time. That was the last string. The final thread still tying me financially to a family that only remembered me when something broke. I could have paid it. But instead, I drove to the DMV and had my name removed from the registration entirely. Took an hour and a $25 fee. Best $25 I've ever spent. That night, I opened the drawer in my kitchen labeled important things. Birth certificates, old tax forms, a greeting card from an ex I should have thrown out 2 years ago, and pulled out the bottle of champagne I'd brought to Brandon's engagement dinner. Still sealed. Still waiting. I opened it. I didn't toast. I just sat on my porch, sipping it in my hoodie, staring out at a quiet street where no one expected me to carry anyone else's burden. It was the first time in years I didn't feel like I was auditioning for a seat at someone else's table. It hit me slowly, not like a revelation but like a truth that had always been there. I was never invited. I was just tolerated. So I stopped trying to be chosen. I started building something better. Small things at first. I hosted my own birthday dinner for 3 friends who actually show up for me. We made tacos, drank cheap beer, and no one looked past me when telling stories. Someone even brought a Polaroid camera and insisted we take group pictures. I was in every one. Later that month, I finally framed the certificate I'd earned for my 10-year work anniversary. A stupid HR formality, sure, but it was a marker of something I did on my own, without backup dancers or someone else's last name pulling strings. I called my landlord and made an offer to buy the condo I'd been renting for 6 years. They accepted. I didn't call anyone in my family to tell them. I just signed the papers, moved my things from one room to another, and poured a glass of wine in my new kitchen. Mine. Paid for by me. Not decorated for Instagram. Just safe. I haven't heard from Brandon since the joint account incident. He didn't call when the wedding was officially called off. Didn't text after Mom visited. I saw a vague status from him pop up in a mutual friend's feed. Some people are allergic to loyalty. It had 2 likes. He never really learned what loyalty meant. He confused it with convenience. Mom still checks in once every few weeks. Small things. Photos of the neighbor's dog. A recipe she tried. No pressure. No demands. She doesn't mention Brandon anymore. I haven't decided if I'll go to Thanksgiving. And maybe that's the point. I'm not living in reaction to them anymore. The last time I saw the engagement dinner venue, weeks after it all happened, I was walking to a coffee shop nearby. The string lights were still up. Another party was being hosted. People were clinking glasses, laughing in tailored suits. I watched for a moment, then kept walking. No bitterness. No sadness. Just peace. Because that night on the rooftop, I didn't just refuse to pay a bill. I cashed out of a lifetime of quiet debts. And for the first time ever, I wasn't sitting beside the trash can. I had a seat at my own table. And it was more than enough.